Alright, class, simmer down. Hello, everyone. It is I, Baronzar, your cyber angel and quirked up college professor today. Went outside and it's fucking windy. Well, stay inside, it's time for class. Right. Oh, second. We need a change in music. Hello, Ren. Hello, Decker. Hello, everyone else who's joining us from Twitch or YouTube. Welcome, welcome. Throw a pen. Huh? What are you trying to throw? Would you like to throw a pipe? God damn it. I had the Twitch thing open, so I saw it twice. Alrighty, I'll keep the things on, don't worry. I will attempt, and this is a big old attempt, to keep on topic. I'm not guaranteeing a goddamn thing, by the way. Actually, no. We'll keep this music. Fuck it. Right, 1 second. Let me move things around. God, I'm like a fucking college professor. For those of you in higher education, let me know. Am I about as dysfunctional right now as half the people who you're paying to teach you? Let me know. Right. Let me... Studio mode, there we go. That one. And we need the screen capture rather than the game capture. Oh, why does it take up both screens? Fuck! Display settings. No, hang on, I need it to only you one. Second. There we go. Right. Technical difficulties, 1 second. We're almost there. How are you all doing anyway? How about we just be silent listening? That it? I think that's it. Okay. Boop. There we go. Smooth transition as ever. Alright, kids. Well, actually, you know what? We do need some 40k music. Hang on. 1 second. Not musical. Music. God damn it. Second. There we go. That should be good. Right. We're ready, I think. Make sure my things are in order. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Warhammer 40,000 lore presentation. You will notice I've used the 7th edition logo. That is because I think it's better than we in an actual lecture. Now, Professor, can I nom my snacks? You may nom your snacks. No gooning. I need both hands on the desks. No gooning in this house of the Emperor. But you may drink. As I am going to as well. Right, so... I won't goon, I swear, both my hands are here. Good, no growing any third hands either. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the presentation on what the hell is Warhammer 40,000. Now, I have a quote I'm going to read you. It's from the Dark Heresy book, but it is an accurate quote, and I think it is very fitting for the nature of the setting. You've probably heard me read this before, but I think it's a really important tone setter. Like, I really think I bash on about it, but this sets the tone so fucking well. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods and master of a million worlds. By the might of his inexorable armies, he is a rotting carcass. Master of his armies. He is a rotting carcass, withering inevitably, arriving into power from the Dark Age technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed each day, so that he may never truly die. Yet in his deathless state, the Emperor continues his eternal vigilance. Mighty battle fleets cross the demon-infested miasma of the warp, the only route between distant stars, the way lit by the Astronomicon. The shining psychic manifestation of the Emperor's will. Vast armies give battle in his name, uncounted worlds. Greatest among his soldiers are the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, bioengineered super warriors. Their comrades in arms are Legion, the Imperial Guard, the ever-vigilant Inquisition, and the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, to name but a few. But for all their multitudes, they are barely enough to hold off the ever-present threat from aliens, heretics, mutants, and worse. To be a man in such times is to be amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. There is no peace among the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods. Now, I think that sets the tone pretty beautifully, don't you? I do hope you agree. So, with all that said, I've said a lot of terms and a lot of things, and some of you might go, Cobral, what the fuck were any of those things? Who is the Emperor? Who is this Imperium? Well, today's the day we answer that. And if you do have any questions, there will be an opportunity to ask them. But please think about them as we go on, and I will give you plenty of time. Depending on how many questions will depend on how long this stream ends up being. It could be a shorter one, it could be a long one. That's fine. So. Oh, hang on. First of all, I wanted to start with what we meant by grimdark, and do enjoy some of the artwork I'd collaged together. Let me find me real quick. Because this is a battle over there. There's not really a good place for me to stand, is there? Maybe I'll stand over here for now. Yeah. So, if you're wondering what the artworks are here, the one I'm just over the top of is quite a recent one, depicting the latest Demon Primarch. We'll get into that, don't worry. A collaborative effort of humans and Eldar against Chaos. It has happened. The Imperium fighting off Tyranids, and the Sisters of Battle having a rough time. So, I wanted to, this bit in particular, what do we mean by grimdark? Because when I talk about what 40k is, many people say, oh, it's a grimdark universe. To explain, the Warhammer 40,000 universe is one of decay, it's one of rot. The Imperium, which essentially is humanity under one banner for the most part. Before everything started, humanity had reached a real high point of technology. I want to stress to you, we were at the zenith of technology. Only the Necrons, who had come long before us, are even further ahead back then. We could do time travel, briefly. We could teleport ships behind someone mid-combat and shoot them with weapons that could disappear from reality and reappear and blow up inside their ships. That's the kind of shit we could do. We could produce sentient robots that could eat planets. I'm not joking. You might ask, where are those robots? Thankfully, mostly gone, because, yeah. The Men of Iron, who are referenced quite a lot, rebelled and decimated much of humanity and decimated many aliens as well. Now, both humanity and aliens did work together to destroy them. Not completely, they are still around here and there. But the point was, it caused a tremendous bit of damage and distrust between humanity and the alien races that are out there. So, at that point, you'd think, okay, that was pretty bad. AI rebellion. It got worse. We'll go into the Eldar a bit later, but the Eldar, through their raw fucking heathenism and need for more. Like, people will say it was them fucking a god into existence, and that's kind of true, but you have to understand, they were going overboard in every aspect because everything was so boring to them. They experienced the world to a heightened state that the drinks they need to drink to get off, think about it this way, when you want to get drunk, right? Maybe you grab the spirits, you grab the vodka, yeah? That isn't enough for them. They need to be so blackout drunk that it just sends them to a different dimension. But the problem is that they're extremely psychically active. And because of that, their connection to the realm of chaos, which is where all psychic power comes from, we are going very surface level, by the way, so I'm not going to go too far into what stuff is, but I'll try and make sure everything's understandable. But again, ask away if anything's been a bit oversimplified. But because of their connection, it caused a god to exist, because they were all doing it. And the Eldar couldn't die. They would come back. They could respawn. The Eldar could respawn. They were way more powerful than they are now, by the way. For millions of years, they were on top. And then it all came crashing down. The god known as Slaanesh was born. This tore apart the galaxy. You could no longer travel because the storms from its birth were so violent. It stopped all space travel. Humanity was cut off and degraded. And degraded and degraded. And in this time, psychers in humanity started popping up. Now, for the Eldar, this was normal. They're all pretty much psychers. But for humanity? No. No, for humanity, this was very different. Humans didn't have many, but when we started getting them, they were out of control. So, hey, Valentine, thank you ever so much for the raid. Welcome in, Raiders. I'm Baron Zucker. This is your Cyber Angel VTuber. And, I'm doing a little lore presentation on Warhammer, so if you want the most nerdiest presentation physically possible, you've come to the right place. Nice rack. Thank you. Not so bad one yourself. But welcome on in, welcome on in. If you want some utter nerd shit, you've come to the right place. This is the nerdiest stream I've ever done in my life. Take a little drink, but thank you ever so much for the raid. 1 second, I need to give you a quick shout out. 1 minute. Are you... Also, what were you doing, by the way, in your stream? Oh, Subliminal. Oh, I've heard of that. That's like the really like mind-fucky horror game, isn't it? I have a question in my mind for the time. What if a perpetual was made to a servitor, like working servitor, not a service skull? That's not dare that they should be. So could it? Oh, depending on how well the servitor was made, it could be an eternal nightmare. Yeah. Not prepared for this at 3 a.m. Oh, don't worry about it. We're playing Subliminal, yeah. No worries. Thank you very much for giving me your community. Take good care of yourself, and I'll see you around. Thank you ever so much for the raid. Right. So yes, raiders, welcome. This is our 40k lore presentation where I will discuss what the hell Warhammer 40,000 is, at the best of my ability. To answer your question, Marks, I'm pretty sure because the poor bastard wouldn't die. Yeah, it's yeah, he probably eternal torment. I tried to rizz up the cute teddy, but it kept killing better. Oh. You got to alter your tactics, potentially. So, where was I? Ah, yes. We were just discussing how humanity's golden age had ended because, well, shall we say an alien race decided to engage in so much hedonism that they created a god of it. I know, 3M hammers. Fair enough, don't worry about it. So, basically, after they had created a literal god of excess, yeah, Slaanesh is, honestly, Diddy would probably be a Slaanesh cultist. Honestly, that shit's like milquetoast Slaanesh cultist shit, honestly. So, yeah, once that happened, honestly, yeah. Yeah, when I say excess, yeah, in every fashion. So, once everyone had been cut off from everywhere else in the warp, so no more warp travel, you're stuck where you are, mostly. There are exceptions. Everything kind of just went to shit, and a bunch of psychics started popping up who, in many cases, became possessed with demons. Those are a thing in this setting. Were, how should we say, completely insane, unchecked, and whatever technology was still around was just used to commit war. So Earth, for example, became a bunch of what is called techno-barbarian states. It's what it sounds like. Imagine barbarians, except they've got fucking bombers and nukes. Genuinely. During this time, a figure would emerge, known as the Emperor of Mankind. That's the only way he addressed himself. This being an impossibly powerful psyker, there's a lot of stuff I could talk about with him, but I'm going to keep it surface level. All you need to know is he is immortal, has lived through many millennia of human history, and has waited if humanity needed him. In his mind, this was the time where he needed to step up and handle it because chaos was rising, humanity was dying out, and he needed to do something. Oh, the people, I won't go too far into it, but let's just say the people that preceded the Emperor knew something was coming, and that's why they helped make him. But we won't go too far into it. So, what did the Emperor do when he turned up? He engineered super soldiers. His armies were smaller at first than everyone else's, so he engineered super soldiers. He started with his bodyguards, the Adeptus Custodes. He then From there, built the Thunder Warriors. These less stable. The Thunder Warriors, the Custodians were like these really difficult to create but really perfect warriors. They're immortal like the Emperor, but almost emotionless. Robotic, even. Best gear, all the 9 yards. The Thunder Warriors were fucking crack addicts. They were a bunch of roided up savages, juiced up on superhuman steroids, given massive guns and told to go murder that guy. And they did that. And they did that until most of the Earth was conquered. At that point, the Emperor basically said, okay, you guys are unstable as fuck, and I need a stable force to conquer the galaxy. A force that will actually work alongside normal humans, because the Thunder Warriors were unstable. They were lunatics, and they died off pretty quickly, because they were really just not built to last. They were destroyed by the Custodians, and the newly made Space Marines. The Dark Angels, to be specific, for you guys who like the First Legion. This was their first engagement, removing their predecessors completely. There are some knocking around still, but, well, I don't know by now, but there were some still by the Siege of Terror, some century or two later. So, but from this point, humanity would begin a conquest. A bloody conquest. However, their first interplanetary, well, their second interplanetary meeting wouldn't be so bloody. The first one was the moon. And they beat the fuck out of the poor bastards on the moon because they wanted the gene vaults. These vaults would let them produce far more Space Marines, but also were pivotal to the next stage of the project. The Space Marines needed generals, and the Emperor produced them. This is where the Primarchs were forged, and you've probably heard them before. You might have heard of Gilliman, potentially. You might have heard of Leman Russ. Maybe you've heard of Angron. You might have heard some of these names. This is where they came from. Let's just say the Chaos Gods were involved a little bit. We'll get to them later, but let's say the Emperor made a deal with them. It gave him knowledge. Knowledge to make the Primarchs. He made them. Then the Chaos Gods were angered by part of the deal that he didn't follow, so they scattered them across the galaxy. He went looking for them. We won't go too deep in the Horus Heresy, because that's a massive topic, and I said I was going surface level. But what I need to express is that even at this time, the Imperium wasn't as superstitious, the religion wasn't there. Chaos wasn't as prevalent. And then during the Horus Heresy, one legion, the Wordbearers, turned to chaos, and started encouraging it across some other legions. For about half of the Space Marine legions, there were 18 of them, by this point, turned traitor. Along with basically half the Imperium. After the Civil War, the Emperor was wounded forever on the Golden Throne. A religion had started around him, something he expressly never wanted. Chaos was now prevalent, and some of the Primarchs had become demons. Some of them disappeared in history. Over the next 10,000 years, the Imperium regressed, became more superstitious, more religious. The advanced technologies they used, even in the Heresy, which some of them were still rare, but they still had them, like grav tanks and stuff. Well, like grav bikes, I guess. Tanks were far rarer to be floating, but you get the point. They had, like, they could do some shit like that. They had the infrastructure to conquer the galaxy, honestly. They could have done it. They were very close. And the Horus Heresy ended all of it. And from that point on, the Imperium slowly broke down. Territories were slowly lost. Various alien races who survived the Purge, I need to stress this, by the way, the Great Crusade was a mass genocide of most other alien races and any human-alien alliances. The aliens that still exist now are the ones who survived. Let me just put that into preference for you. They're the ones that survived the Purge. Now, the Imperium is a very rough place to live. Some worlds are like ours, but a bit more resource tight, because the Imperium needs its tithe. Taxes are still a thing, folks. Yep. Taxes are still a thing. And they're got a gunpoint, if needed. Forget prison, they'll just kill you. So, from here, that's where we're at. The most recent 40k lore is some of the Primarchs have been returning, both Demon and Loyalist. And the galaxy is split in half, some of it cut off by a massive warp storm. Yep. The IRS comes with massive ships to collect tithes. Those tithes could be of men and women. The Imperial Guard does not discriminate. They'll take you both. Can you pick up a weapon? Can you disassemble it? Can you reassemble it? Great. Can you fire it? Great. You're in. And your planet might just be that. Producer of people. Cadia, Krieg, Katachan. These are all worlds where the main export are people. Obviously, Cadia is no more, but when it was around, it was the pattern that many of the world followed. So, let's talk a little bit more about the Who. Hopefully I've got the point across about the Grim Darkness, by the way, and it isn't just for humanity as well. The Eldar are a shadow of what they were now. I'll get into them more later, but they've either had to go into like this dogmatic need to like limit themselves in their way of life to make sure they don't fall to depravity, or they've gone deeper into it to feed the god that's trying to kill them. Some have turned to such a dour state that they disappeared and joined the one Eldar god who's still whole. The god who laughs. We'll talk about him later, but what the Eldar find funny, you might not find very funny. They've got a very fucked sense of humor sometimes. Considering those clowns like to kill people. So, the factions. Now, I couldn't really make this very pretty. I tried, but we're just going to have a collage of things. So, we'll start off the Imperium. This is humanity. This is people like you and me. Except we're in a meat grinder of a slowly dying empire. That's a religious hellscape. And even the people who do the technology are religious nutjobs. The warriors in this place range from just your normal person with a laser gun. Now, I would stress, if this gun was in real life, it would be horrifically powerful. But in setting, the lasgun's a fucking flashlight compared to some things. They call it a flashlight because it doesn't do much damage. Some of the aliens that exist in this setting can tank multiple hits from those things. But there's going to be hundreds of thousands of them firing, so it doesn't tend to matter. Plus, they'll have tanks, aircraft, artillery. Think any military you've ever heard of. Multiply the numbers in the millions. Add enough tanks and guns to make the ground shake. Enough aircraft to fill the skies with just the disruption from jetfire going past. Never mind the fact that there'll be super heavy tanks the size of buildings. You've got the Space Marines themselves, these 8-foot, well, probably like more than, I think 10 foot? It's like 10 foot, something death like that. Super soldiers who are horrifically strong and powerful. You've definitely seen them. You've definitely seen Space Marines. They're like the poster boys. We'll talk more about them specifically, but you'll have seen Space Marines. Clad in thick armor, a walking tank. The Sisters of Battle, clad in quite thick armor themselves, but they're normal, unaugmented women. But they're very pious women. If you like warrior nuns, 8 foot was right. Okay, so I was right, 8 foot. If you like badass warrior nuns who run at you with a screaming chainsword and a flamethrower, you'll like the Sisters of Battle. They've been well taken care of in many ways in recent years. They could get more, but they've been treated very well recently. I'll get to why they're an all-female order later. There's some funny shenanigans with that. You've got more elite forces like the Adeptus Custodes. The Emperor's bodyguards are still around, and occasionally they'll leave the palace. God help you if you're the reason they left the palace. There is 10,000 of them, and each one can fight an army. Speaking of fighting armies, if in case I wasn't done, there's a small group known as the Imperial Knights who command giant walkers. Somewhere between a medieval knight and a Gundam. And holy shit, they're terrifying. Supported by the Adeptus Mechanicus, the religious mechanics, basically. They are both priest, scientist, engineer, biologist. They are all of them. There's so many things. They have legions of cyborgs, strange technology that no one else in the Imperium understands or has. They are strange. Radiation weaponry, lightning, and a religious dogma around technology. The idea that machines have a soul. Now, you might notice just behind you guys in chat, that 8-pointed star. That is the mark of chaos. So, chaos. We'll get more into it later. What you need to know is this. Chaos is a realm in of itself where things that happen in our universe reflect on there, and vice versa in many ways. Mass violence, mass disease, constant change, excess. These four things fuel the four most powerful entities within the realm of chaos. You'll hear the word forces of chaos a lot as well. That's just the collective term, right? There are four gods of chaos. There are other little gods here and there, but the four main ones. Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. The god of Khorne, the god of war, violence, and blood, but also tends to be, has a weird sense of honor and martial pride. Nurgle, sorry, Tzeentch, the god of change, mutation, deceit, but also the idea that change can bring hope, by the way. Also magic and sorcery. Now, sorcery in Warhammer is exclusively a chaos thing. If you're more familiar with Warhammer Fantasy, spells are a bit more ambiguous in that, but in 40k, if you do psychic stuff, you've got a connection to the warp, where chaos is. But sorcery, very specifically, is a chaos art. You do not need to be a psyker to do it. And Tzeentch juices up sorcerers, but is just as likely to screw them as well. And not in a good way. Very bad way, normally. Nurgle, disease, entropy, certain death, but also the cycle of life. Nurgle would like you to sit there and do nothing. Accept you're going to die, but live well. Because in your death, your corpse will fertilize the ground. New life will grow from you. Nurgle is accepting things as they are. You'll notice some of these gods don't align very nicely. That's intentional. They hate each other. But Nurgle says, just sit there, fester, rot. Don't worry about doing much. One of his greatest champions just sits and does fucking nothing all the time. Lastly, I've already mentioned them before, but Slaanesh, the god of excess. The most misunderstood of the Chaos Gods, by the way. By far, the most misunderstood. So many people do not understand Slaanesh. And I want to express to you, yes, Sex is an aspect, but it's not just sex. Slaanesh is not the sex god. Slaanesh is the god of doing a hard bit of cocaine off a stripper's tits, dancing like a lunatic, drinking as much as possible, gorging himself on food, fucking said stripper in every way possible, and then overdosing and waking up in a haze, only to do it all again, but even harder. Because the sensation's numb to you now. I need to say this because this is closer to what Slaanesh actually is. Gluttony, greed, lust. Slaanesh's realm is very similar to how hell is depicted in Dante's Inferno. But also, Slaanesh asks you to take pleasure in things. Maybe you're trying to draw something, right? Maybe you're trying to paint something and you're struggling. Slaanesh asks you to enjoy that painting. Enjoy the process. Enjoy your work. Take pride in what you've created. These are all things that Slaanesh encourages. Like, Slaanesh, unironically, would be happy if you sat there, enjoyed good food, enjoyed good drink, had a passionate life, and did lots of art. Slaanesh would be happy with that. Maybe you're a warrior and you want to perfect your martial arts. Slaanesh loves you for that. Perfection. An excessive need. I need to stress to you, everything about Slaanesh is having too much of something. Going too far. That's Slaanesh's thing. I've explained Slaanesh more than the other gods because Slaanesh is not as straightforward, in my opinion. Slaanesh could be a draw to sorcerers, to warriors, to hedonists, to politicians, to all sorts. The same people who might want to pick Tzeentch might pick Slaanesh. Because Slaanesh has many secrets too. Now, outside of these four gods is just general chaos undivided. This means that some aspect of all four of them is being represented here. It could be a force made up of Khorne and Nurgle worshippers, maybe Tzeentch and Slaanesh, maybe a bit of all four. It's rare, but it can happen. Or people who just worship chaos as a pantheon. Now, I mentioned the Horus Heresy, didn't I, before? I won't go too far into it, but many of the people who turned traitor went into a place called the Eye of Terror, a rip in reality, where our world and the warped meet. Time moves differently in there. And because of that time difference, think of it like, if you're familiar with Dragon Ball Z and the time dilation chamber, or concepts like that, like, think of any show, like Doctor Who. Doctor Who has that whole bit, I think, in a ship where part of the ship has aged differently because they're near a black hole. That's how the Eye of Terror kind of works. If you're in it, time moves differently. Many of the traitors are out of time. 10,000 years has gone by in a blink of an eye for them. And so the same traitors from the fall of the Imperium's Golden Age are walking the galaxy, and they want vengeance for an Imperium they believe betrayed them. A name you'll hear quite often is Abaddon the Despoiler. He was the right hand of Horus, and he is now the War Master of Chaos. He commands the Black Legion, the primary bad guy faction, if you like. I mean, they're all bad guys in this setting, let's be blunt, but the Black Legion, like the typical black and gold armored guys, 8-pointed star, the eye on them, the whole 9 yards. They worship all four gods equally and have representatives of each. Abaddon intentionally keeps his main guys a rep of each of the Chaos Gods. Specifically, keep them all in line. There are legions who picked one god. For example, the World Eaters picked Khorne. Their Primarch Angron is now his greatest trophy and champion alike. A raging beast that savages worlds and tears them to shreds, along with his legion of crazy Space Marine berserkers. that have long since lost their minds. The fact they can still operate ships at all is a miracle, because they are so insane. The violence they'll commit, almost unmatched by any other faction. Tzeentch has the Thousand Sons. Formerly, they were a legion of psychers. Imagine Space Marines, but they were space wizards. Now, every Space Marine faction on the Imperium side has a few, but these guys were an entire legion of them. Think like 20,000 plus guys who were all space wizards. Well, now most of them are dust in armor, and the ones who aren't are really powerful sorcerers. They summon demons to make plans, they cock things up, and if you play Space Marine 2, you've seen plenty of them. They're the blue and gold guys. They're probably the easier one to explain because you've seen them. The Death Guard chose Nurgle. Basically, they're a bunch of bloated zombies. Otherwise, they're factions filled with demons shoved into machinery because they killed off most of their vehicle guys a long time ago. Because most of those guys were still loyal. So, yeah. They're either zombies, Space Marine zombies, or vehicles with demons shoved in them. With their Primarch Mortarion looking like a giant fucking, like, dust pile. No worries. And lastly, the Emperor's children joined Slaanesh. The irony of the name, considering they are the most hedonistic, disgusting Space Marines possible. Every vice they love. Every over-the-top need for martial prowess, they've got it. Every drug, they've done it, and they've made more. Some of them have even had their bodies mutilated to allow them to produce horrific sounds to blast things apart after hearing this music of Slaanesh that they've become obsessed with. Others want to be the perfect Space Marine to an obsessive degree. Yeah, they are horrifying, to say the least. Other than that, you've got the demons themselves of each of the four gods. Horrific manifestations of they're all a piece of each god. They will sometimes work with the traitor Space Marines. They will sometimes just kill them. Because they're demons. They're almost animalistic sometimes. Other than that, you've got things like the Chaos Knights. Yep, remember the Imperial Knights from before? Well, some of them turn traitor too. And they've got demons in them, or might as well be demons. Because, my god, read any description of them, you've got massive war machines emerging from pools of blood the size of a city to walking embodiments of carnage. So, if you like the idea of them, then yeah, they might be for you. There are a few little sub-factions here and there that are dotted around, but those are the main guys for them. We'll go to the Eldar next, but again, we'll explain a bit more in detail about each of them. Well, the ones with a bit more to say later. But simply put, the Eldar are split into three technically. There's a fourth one, we'll talk about them later. They've got the Craftworld Eldar, who are very monk-like. Have a lot of Japanese aesthetic, actually. They're space elves, but they believe in following a path. And the idea is if you follow this path, and then move path after you've mastered that one, your mind will focus on that, and won't go overboard. And the idea is that avoiding any hedonism through dedication to your path will stop corruption to Slaanesh and keep your soul preserved. And should you fall in battle, your soul will be preserved in a stone that'll be brought into their craft world, this continent-sized ship that they live on. Maybe, if needed, they will hook your soul into a mechanical walker called a Wraith Guard. These Wraiths are the literal dead piloting these things, and some Eldar craft worlds have had to resort to using them a lot. Yeah, even in death. You think the Space Marines, their dreadnoughts, which we'll get onto later, are a problem. Yeah, the Eldar will pull you back from your afterlife. That's artificial anyway. Just to bring you back to help them, because they're all getting murdered. Speaking of murder, Dark Eldar. One of the most fucked up factions in the entire setting. How to put this? The Dark Eldar are evil. They want you to suffer so they don't have to. They love inflicting pain. This is done to feed Slaanesh, because your pain, your suffering, means they don't get pulled in. Because the thing they're trying to avoid is Slaanesh eating their soul. They don't have soul stones. They have your suffering. They will happily slaughter and skin, mutilate, torture, anything you can think of that causes pain and misery to you. They will do it to you gladly, because it might buy them another year. And if they fall in battle, well, their disgusting doctors known as homunculi can bring them back via advanced technology that feeds off the souls and pain of others. They have arenas where scantily clad witches, women and some men, fight in arenas against various opponents to thrill an audience. And this terror and pain caused in this fight feeds them and keeps their souls from being taken. But make no mistake, there's nothing selfless in this. They chose to be worse. The city they come from, Komroth, was already a seat of depravity. And they continued even further than they already were. And they were already the worst. Lastly, the Harlequins. Imagine if all the theatre kids and all the kids who went to clown school got together, mastered acrobatics, were given some gravity-defying belts to let them fly around, wore masks, and became lethal assassins, and would murder you whilst dancing out a play about the fall of the Eldar Empire or some other story from Eldar mythology, whilst laughing maniacally at you. That'd be the Harlequins. They are both performers, murderers, and guardians of the Black Library, a source of knowledge hidden away that very few get to see. Whenever they turn up, some shit's going down, and it's not going to be fun for anyone. Now then, I mentioned some of the big players, but there's more. Let's start with the Tyranids, shall we? They're the ones at the bottom right. Who and what the fuck are they? The Tyranids are a hive mind that has come to our galaxy to eat us. They are hungry, and they want to consume you and everything else. They eat planets down to its fucking atmosphere. Imagine if they could, a thing could figure out a way to eat your sea, your minerals, your atmosphere, everything on the planet. Vor enthusiasts, this might be your faction. Do you like some Cthulhu shit, by the way? Because they're very Cthulhu-like. Especially with the Genestealer cults. A Genestealer is a subtype of Tyranid, an infiltration unit that's sent way before the fleet. And how should we say, they will mind control and infuse your genetics. This is where the Genestealer part comes from. Once you're infected, you'll really want to fuck. You'll really want to fuck. Because you've got an STD now, kids. Your children are going to be alien. Yeah. And you're going to want to screw around a lot. And your children's will look like horrible hybrid monsters. And their children look like slightly less horrible monsters. And eventually, they'll look almost human. Off a bald of a ridge on the head. But with a mining mask on or some other bit of kit, you would never know. And the cult will bide their time, infiltrating, messing with genetics. Hell, they might even... Imagine if you had a blood transfusion and you've now been infected with an alien virus which connects you to a hive mind. You still have your own will, but you worship this brood lord, a gene steal that's enhanced itself by evolution. Essentially, once it's started the cult, it grows into a mini hive mind of its own. And if you've watched or listened to anything around Lovecraft, in particular, Innsmouth, the Shadow over Innsmouth? Yeah, you're an Innsmouther, basically. You're part of an alien cult that will want you to rise up against your oppressors and call in the Hive Fleet, or the Star Children, as they'll call them. Where, once the battle is done, you will be fed to the same acid vats as everything else. In that last minute, the link connecting you to the others is gone. And you realize what you are, what you've done, right as you're fed to the acid pits. But in the meantime, you're a bunch of crazy cultists who have mining equipment and technicals and all kinds of crazy shit. You burst up from underground. They're a very underdog faction, but if you can pull them off, very lethal. Now, onto the factions who don't have a million subgroups. Because I promise you not all of them do. They have lots of lore, but not like detailed, unique factions underneath that overarching faction. The Imperium's the worst for it. The Space Marine... We're not going to get into every Space Marine chapter. There's so many. Right. Necrons. Imagine ancient Egypt meets Terminator. Boom. You've got Necrons. They are ancient, powerful, and angry. 60-odd million years ago, they fought a war with an ancient race because that race wouldn't teach them immortality to save them from their horrific, virus-ridden, irradiated world. So they made a deal with different beings, made them bodies, and those beings ate their fucking souls and made them into mechanical automatons with only the nobility retaining minds. Eventually, they turned on their masters, destroying them, enslaving them. But at this point, the galaxy was weak. Chaos was starting to manifest. The very first demons to ever exist were around. And so the Necrons chose to hide. The Age of Flesh had begun. So they waited for the organics to weaken. The Eldar ruled the galaxy for some time, but now the Necrons have returned. They smell blood in the water, and their king has returned. They are far weaker than they were, but this is the faction that can detonate a sun. They ain't that weak. They don't need the warp. They can turn off chaos with the right technology. They are insanely powerful. Their technology is like magic. Space, time, they can fuck with it. And it's just a Tuesday for them. Their weapons disintegrate you. Their bodies regenerate. Yeah. They are a nightmare to fight. And some of them have gone truly mad, to the point where they want to destroy all life, or, in one group's case, they want to wear your skin because they miss having flesh. Yeah. Yeah. That's Necrons. Now onto a more fun one, eh? The Orcs. Yes, there are sci-fi orcs, and they are always having the most fun of any faction. Let me tell you, the Orcs love war. They love war. I can't do the scream right justice, but they love war. They love battle. They love fighting. They make insane technology which shouldn't work. And there's a hint that they might have been one of the many creations of that elder race the Necrons fought. Once upon a time, the Orcs might have been even more powerful. They've regressed, but in many ways, they're also very powerful now. And they are perhaps one of the main reasons. Yeah, kind of like drunk Brits, yeah, they're football hooligans. That Cockney accent. They're very entertaining. They're also potentially one of the main reasons why Space Marines were created in the first place, by the way. Because these guys can throw a human around like they're nothing. And that's without the ones that have fought to become bigger and bigger and bigger. Some of them, like Gazgul, are so big, they can turn a tank over with their strength alone, let alone the bionics they've grafted to themselves, and the insane amount of firepower they carry, because orcs love big, noisy guns, big, spiky weapons, and some of them make fucking titanic war machines that can crush cities. They are an absolute menace to everyone. And let me be very clear. The orcs are having a great time while you're screaming. Because you're panicking for your life. This is the best day ever for them. And the more of you there are, the more things you shoot at them with. Brilliant. They fucking love you. And the more you fight them, the more they fucking adore you. They love Space Marines. They love them. They intentionally try and draw them out. They want a good fight. Gazgul is obsessed with Yarrick, a commissar of the Imperial Guard, who's like a hero to the side of humanity. But to Gazgul, he's his ultimate nemesis because he's beaten him in battle. Not in a direct fist fight, Gaz wins that easily, but in tactics. And he fucking loves that. He thinks that's amazing. That's the Orcs. In a very short way, that's the Orcs. Now I'm going to have to move over a little bit to talk about the last two factions. They're newer in the grand scheme of things, in some ways. Right. Also, my voice sounds hoarse. My apologies. So, let's talk the Votann, the Tau. We'll start with the Leagues of Votann. There's not much to say about them. Remember when I discussed humanity's golden age? Well, one of the things we did was we sent ships to the center of the galaxy. Close to the galactic center, the gravity is really high. So the cloning machines on board these ships were used to breed a type of human that could handle the atmosphere better. These clones were shorter and shorter and shorter, and stockier and beefier, until we made the Votann. Space dwarves. Or squats, as they're sometimes called, in a more derogatory sense. These guys utilize a lot of ancient technology that humanity's long lost. They make heavy use of AI, as in helpful AI. They have, like, AI that's sentient enough, or at least has a mind enough to be, like, considered a brother to them. They are commanded by these ancient machines called the Votann, who act as their own astronomicon, their own beacon in the warp to travel round. They have their own psychers. They have lots of beefy technology, bolt weapons, like the Space Marines have. They have lots of various technologies the Imperium has, but way more of it, because, well, they've still got the schematics to build them. They have the technology that the Imperium lost, and if the Imperium ever finds out, they will go on a bloody genocide to get it. Especially if the Mechanicus find out about it. Oh. So the Votann will help the Imperium, but they keep them at arm's length because they know those religious nut jobs will come for them. But the Votann are no slouches. They have some really strong tech. They're typically broken into clans, and if you're thinking Deep Rock Galactic at this point, good, because there's definitely a nod to that. They've got a corporate side where they do mining guilds and all this kind of stuff. And they'll actually do diplomacy with the Imperium. The Imperium will call them Xenos, but they are basically just humans that have been adjusted medically, well, genetically. But in essence, they're space dwarves. They look for loot, well, they look for bits to mine. They feed their holds, And when they die, they are reconnected to the Votan to give up their memories to it, to help feed it information. From the Votan they come, to the Votan they die. Now, the last race, the youngest race, the Tau. The Tau are a race who believed the galaxy, and still do to a point, believe the galaxy is a hopeful place. They're playing Star Trek, while everyone else is playing like a way darker Star Wars. Like, they honestly, the way they see the galaxy at first was like Star Trek. They thought that's how things were going to be. Except instead of the Federation as the greater good. This idea that give up yourself to the whole. Like, support the... Basically, a very... Think of how, like, Japan and countries like that often encourage collectivism. Many people will say they're communist. They're not, by the way. They have a caste system. There's an actual, like, there's societal things that you are expected to do because you're born. If you're a fire caste, you're a warrior. Earth caste, you're a scientist or a technician. Water caste, you're a diplomat. Air caste, you're a pilot, starship commander, etc. And if you're an ethereal, you're in charge. You say how things go. Everyone else is equal beneath you. By you, I mean the Tau. Every race that's brought into the Tau's empire is equal beneath them. They'll accept you if you're willing to take on the greater good and throw away the, superstitions of old. They'll treat you well, but you'll be one of many. If you're a fire warrior, you'll be the first to be sent out because the Tau don't lose their guys. Now, a big thing with the Tau, they only live 40 years, so their greatest heroes have to be cryogenically frozen between battles. Or, in some cases, copied into an AI engram. Imagine if one of you died and I just copied your brain into an AI. They do that shit. Well, I won't get into Farsight too much, but he's got a reason he's still alive somehow. If he ever finds out, he will sort himself out with that one. But the Tau, physically, are weaker than you or I. Like, if you or me walked up to a Tau without their armor and gear, we could beat the hell out of them. Their bones are weaker, especially in Aircast, they're hollow. But you'll never get that close, most of the time. They have weapons that way outrange you, punch straight through your armor. They have mastered plasma weaponry, railguns, ion weapons. They use mech suits. They've got a bit of Gundam going on with them a little bit, with their crisis suits. And they're very good at using hit and run, and they operate like a modern military. They won't just stand there and get shelled. They'll move their guys out of there. They'll reposition, they'll ambush. They'll draw you in and slowly pick you off with their suit's heightened mobility. And if you bring anything too big, well, they'll either call in a starship or utilize specialist technology to try and take it down. They've got nothing close to the titans of the Imperium, these skyscraper-sized war machines, but typically they've got enough firepower to deal with them if they have to. And believe me, for the Tau, losing isn't an option. Their empire isn't that big. They cannot afford mass casualties like the Imperium can. One of the main reasons the two try not to fight is because the Tau will inflict massive casualties on the Imperium, but the Imperium will devastate the Tau Empire. And I'll be very honest with you. The Tau's greatest nightmare, that they will never admit, now they know how big the Imperium is if the Imperium decides to send everything. Or if any of the other races with, like, the Tyranids come in force. Or Chaos. Now, the Tau could definitely fight off a faction. And it would wound the Imperium greatly, to the point where they'd be too weak to fight the others, but the Tau know, deep down, they live on everyone else's leisure. But saying that, they put up a damn good fight, and their empire still stands. They're still fighting. They're still developing new technologies. That's a big thing the Tau have over so many of these other races. They still know how to make new technology. They use AI to assist them, and they innovate. It might be to their own detriment sometimes, but they innovate. They adapt. That's something most of the factions have long lost. Now, with that really exhaustive slide, let's talk a little about just us. Humanity. Let's talk a little bit about us, eh? Because I think it's important for you to understand the human perspective. Humanity, in essence, we are a shadow of what we were. Let me put it off here. There we go. Just peeking out. We are an absolute shadow of what we used to be. We used to be the peak of technology. We had autonomous machines that could consume, build, terraform. We had ships that could fly across the galaxy in an instant. We had great military technologies. We could create an entire subspecies of humanity to do mining, where the Votan came from. And all these prefabs. Imagine if I could send you to another planet with everything you needed to start a civilization. Everything. The machines would do everything for you. It would print fucking everything. Including massive machines that could help terraform, take down forests, fight against monsters. Eventually, those would become Imperial Knights. But a massive thing with this is we were once like gods. Now, we basically fight every other alien. Very rarely we'll make diplomatic deals with some of them. Against, like, Chaos or the Tyranids. Forces that cannot be reasoned with. But now the Imperium is dogmatic, hateful. I have to stress to you this. A preacher in the Imperium will tell you to hate. To hate. Hate the alien. Hate the mutant. Hate the traitor and the heretic. Hate. The Imperium is built off hate. It stands because of defiance and raw fucking hatred of everything else around it. In hatred of itself. It is a walking carcass of spite. And it would rather die than change. And even as its greatest heroes return, the likes of Rabute Gilliman, who is a great reformer, even he knows the rot is too deep. The religion that his father, the Emperor, never wanted. A religion which has caused mass wars, has devastated humanity. Superstition and religion from the Mechanicus has stagnated technology. Innovation is considered heresy now. And to be declared a heretic is to be put to death by the likes of the Inquisition, their secret police, who are basically able to do whatever the hell they want, unless the Emperor himself were to get off the throne. I'm not even kidding. Or the likes of the Arbites. They have laws, yes, but if these guys put a sentence on you, imagine if Judge Dredd wasn't just damning you, but let's say you died in prison. Your next of kin might be viable, depending on the law you broke. So your child might have to carry out your sentence. What's that? You want to run because a horrific flesh-eating monster is coming at you and has ripped apart everyone you know and love and has made a tank evaporate with acid? You fucking coward. Bang. Commissar pulls his bolt gun out and blows your fucking brains out with a fucking basically rocket launcher pistol. For just being scared. A pretty normal human thing? Yeah. No. You're now an example to the next 50 men next to you about why cowardice isn't acceptable here. Question the religion, get put to death. Or, worse, maybe you've committed tech heresy, you've modified something. Well, now your agency is gone as we wire you into being a fucking zombified mechanical horror that is forever now to clean the floors. Your head has you've been lobotomized, and maybe if they fucked it up, you can still feel everything. As you have tubes put in you to spray cleaning fluid on the floor and a cloth grafted to your fucking hand, or a cloth dispenser perhaps, that then wipes the floor forever. Or maybe your head's been removed and you're now a fucking door. And Marks, you mentioned a question about a perpetual. Potentially, if they're not dead, they're going to perpetually be a undead robot forever. Because they're still alive. They're just brainless. If you played Space Marine 2, you might have seen him wandering around. Oh, and if you fail to become a Space Marine, yeah, that'll happen to you too. It's already hard enough to even get that far to try. So, but in many ways, there are parts of the Imperium that are still nice. There are paradise worlds that are literally untouched deliberately. Only the elite get to really enjoy them, but some places of beauty remain. Earth itself is now called Terra, and it's got no ocean. It's literally a massive city. The entire planet's a city, pretty much, with layers that go deep down. The Emperor's Palace takes up the entire Himalayas. And, well, it might be the holiest world in all the Imperium, but it's not a blue planet anymore. Not even close. Now, let's talk the Space Marines a little bit. So, what are they? Who are they? These are potentially the greatest overall fighting force humanity's produced. The Custodies are arguably better. And the Thunder Warriors physically were superior, but these guys are more stable, they're fast, they're intelligent, they're extremely cultured, actually, as well. For example, that middle one there, the Blood Angel, they do calligraphy and art in between battles, poetry. But they'll also fucking drain you dry of blood, because they have a genetic flaw which makes them a fucking vampire. But also, all of them are Hoplons. They're all really buff Hoplon men. No matter how mutated they were before they got turned to a Space Marine, the gene seed, the thing that makes you into a Space Marine, converts them to look like their Primarch. So they're actually really attractive by most people's standards. But also are very likely to lose themselves to a berserker-like rage. The Space Wolves. This is the guy on the far left. A very Viking-esque group. They drink beer, they have great mead halls, they ride wolves sometimes. And they're pretty chill. They actually have a lot of care for humanity, and they often overplay the barbarian look to make you underestimate them. They're not always the smartest, but they're damn loyal. To a fault. Just behind me and you can just about see a Black Templar. They are one of the few Space Marines who are religious crusaders. They are always on the hunt for aliens and any other monstrosities out there, and have a particular hatred for Psykers. They can't produce any themselves due to an incident that happened, so they also really hate them too. Unfortunately, Psykers are kind of needed for certain things for the Imperium to work. But if they could, they'd put a fucking broadsword through the bastards straight away. They are zealots who hate everything, and they will fucking murder anyone who they are pointed at. Or you've got groups like the Dark Angels. They were the first Legion, but they've got a lot of secrets. And if you were to learn their secrets, you'd disappear. They're untrustworthy, very unreliable sometimes. But they have weapons stored away that are truly terrifying. men of iron that have been captured and forced to work for them, ancient plasma weaponry. When they turn up, they mean business. But if their elites turn up, it means that they found something that relates to them. They always have ulterior motives, but yeah. They all get shit done, but always for their own reasons. These are to name but a few Space Marines. The Ultramarines, or the guys in blue you've seen everywhere, they're a bit of an everyman. They do a bit of everything alright. But they're big on logistics. Their Primarch, Rabute Gilliman, is about logistics. Supply lines, that kind of shit. Empire building. I should probably mention how a Space Marine is made. The Space Marines are all young men. This is partly because to make a Space Marine requires a vast but extreme injection of testosterone to bulk the body up massively. This big part of the procedure isn't compatible with women, which is why you won't find any Space Marine sisters. There are definitely women out there who Space Marines will flat out say, if I could turn you into a Space Marine, I would. That conversation has been had. There is a place for those, though. Those strong, pious women, there's a place for them. Now, I don't mean the Guard. No. Such strength, piety, that can be used elsewhere. We'll get to them. Now, other than the extreme juicing of testosterone, their ribs are fused together. An extra heart is put in them. And something called the gene seed is inserted into their body. This is a twofold organ. It finishes the genetic alterations. As you grow from a young man to fully grown adult, you grow into an 8-foot tall super soldier. This adds various organs to your body, and also adds a second gene seed. You'll have two in your body. One that was put in there, and one that you grow. One can be removed while you're alive to make another Space Marine from you. The other when you're dead. And special medics called apothecaries, who both heal you and extract the gene seed, are present for that purpose. Maybe you've got a psychic gift, you become a librarian. And if you're decent at it, well, then you end up on the battlefield, wielding your immense psychic might and superhuman strength. You're basically like a Jedi, but in massive fucking power armor. They all wear power armor, by the way. This ceramite, some of the hardest stuff the Imperium has. And in itself connects to your body and enhances your reflexes and strength tremendously. The things you have to remember with Space Marines is they're not just stupidly strong, they're fast. Really fast. Ignoring when they plug in a big jump pack to send them flying over the battlefield to just smash into problems. Some going to be mechanics and go to the tech priests to learn the ways of technology. Some become like battle priests, these chaplains, who scream litanies of hatred at their brothers to encourage their violence, but they also are there to monitor their spiritual health, because they can fall to chaos. It's happened before, and it can happen again. They are the greatest of humanity's warriors in many ways. But you have to understand this. They are superhuman. They are the best and worst of us. Let's talk the Imperium a little bit. We talked about humanity. The Imperium made up of a few bits. I mentioned the Space Marines. They're one aspect. They kind of sit on their own group independently, but they're part of the Imperium. They fight for humanity to defend worlds. Adeptus Custodes. They are there to guard the Emperor, first and foremost, before anything else. After that, they send themselves out because no one tells them what to do, bar the big man himself. Otherwise, they send themselves. Even the highest level of government, they can walk in and they are basically in charge. But they very rarely do it because they believe, and the Emperor basically told them as such, that the Imperium was the domain of man, humanity. Men and women, normal people, not super soldiers. The custodians only come in when it's needed. But otherwise, they are a terrifying force in the battlefield. Their objectives are often shadowy, and they leave just as quickly. You'll be blessed to see a Space Marine. To see a Custodes in a lifetime is something else. Adeptus Mechanicus. Do you want any fucking technology? You go through them. The mass-produced tanks, guns, armor, gene seed for Space Marines. Do you want some of the greatest surgeons? Now, obviously, there's bits of the government that handle surgeons stuff, and I haven't mentioned them here specifically. But the whole, like, governmental side, that doesn't really get shown as much in the game. But the Mechanicus have that. Cyborg legions. The Titans, the most powerful land-based war machines the Imperium have. The Mechanicus maintain them and have pretty much domain over them. Knights as well, but we'll get to Knights in a bit. But if you want guns produced, Mechanicus. You want technology assessed, they'll do it. In fact, they religiously do it. They'll get shit working. But don't get in their way. Because those guys in red robes are packing some firepower. And a legion of loyal, mind-linked cyborgs that will happily die in droves to take you out. They wield radiation, lightning, and all kinds of stuff that just isn't there normally. Now, we get on to the Sisters of the Battle, or the Adeptus Sororitas, as it's also called. Now, why is there an entire order of warrior nuns? First of all, why the fuck not? That's pretty hot and badass, if you ask me. Second of all, I mentioned the church, the ecclesiarchy they're called. They're the Church of the Emperor. Back a while back, I won't go too deep into it, but let's just say one of their priests became in charge of the Imperium and took over the whole thing like a dictator for a while. He raised a massive army, because back then the church could raise humongous armies. As big as the Imperial Guard. When he was deposed, some of the warriors under him were called the Brides of the Emperor, this religious order of women who devoted themselves to the Emperor. Well, they were forgiven as they were tricked into following him. He was like a false prophet to them. So, once that all gone down, it was decreed that the ecclesiarchy may never again have men under arms. There is a technical exception to this, but for all intents and purposes, they can't have men under arms. Keyword being men. So they had women under arms instead. Now, the Sisters of Battle are only one bit of this organization. The Adeptus Sororitas deal with diplomacy in the Imperium, religious matters. They will actually manipulate behind the scenes noble families to make sure that they are following the Imperium. They're being advised on how to manage their estate, because noble families in the Imperium are vastly powerful. And they also have a medical corps as well. Most of these women were orphans who were taken, educated extremely well, and some of them will join the Sisters of Battle. An elite corps of women who are given power armor, shrunken down bolters that better fit them, flame weapons, melters, which are like lasers that are extremely hot, burn through fucking anything practically. They have tanks, they have their own mechs they can connect into nowadays. They are given holy relics, and they are some of the most religious and devout troops in the Imperium. Literal miracles happen around them that are not explainable. And some of them have even rose from the fucking dead as a saint. A great angel with wings. They're no joke, and they're a very valid faction. And honestly, they're pretty cool. I like them quite a lot. Now, enough fanciful elite troop, this, that, and the other. Time for the Guard. The ground troops, the normal humans, given guardsman armor and a fucking lasgun and said, go fucking kill him, guardsman. Are you doing your part? You fucking better be. Otherwise that commissar's gonna blow your fucking brains out. Maybe you're lucky and you're a tank driver. Get in that Lehman Russ battle tank and charge the enemy, screaming and firing away. Maybe you have the honor of crewing a Baneblade Super Heavy, a massive building-sized tank with 11 guns of death. Or maybe you're in the artillery and you're way away from that bullshit. Perhaps you're being supported by the Air Corps, who are technically not the Guard, they're the Navy. There's essentially to split them up in case any of them turn traitor. But you'd be supported by them. Maybe you've got some abhuman support. What are abhumans? I should have mentioned those earlier. My apologies. Abhumans are a stable mutant of human. Have you played Darktide, kids? If you've played Darktides, you've seen the Ogrin. That's one of the most common ones. They are bigger, dumber, but they're good eggs. And commissars assigned to them often treat them quite nicely because, you know what? They don't need to be screamed at. You just tell them, yeah, the Emperor would really be really happy with you and give you a big sticker if you murder that orc. And they'll do it. Some of them get surgery to become smarter. Not that smart, but they can count to 10. That's pretty smart for an Ogrin. But they are brutal shock troops. Or the more smaller ratlings, who are amazing snipers, and very good at acquiring any loot you need. Don't ask them how they got it, though. They're sly bastards. But other than that, there's the normal humans, go in droves, die in millions, and they have many regiments. The Cadians, Krieg, Katachan, the Steel Legion, to name but a few. Each of them very different, quite different tactics. They share some stuff like weaponry and that kind of thing, but they're their own quirks. You know, maybe one guard regiment's gun might shoot slower but heavier hitting. Maybe one's just rapid fire constantly, etc., etc. They've got a variety of vehicles, and they are the front line. It's them who go in. All the other forces are there to support them, normally. Now, speaking of support, do you guys like massive mechs? Do you guys like humongous, towering, mechanized medieval knights that wield weapons strong enough to wipe out a fucking regiment of guys? Well, those are the Imperial Knights. So, some of you who've been following me for a bit, maybe you've seen my my pictures of knights. They're pretty big. They're pretty powerful. They are essentially a feudal order who come from worlds that are basically medieval, but they have some technology from the old days. That technology being a building-sized war machine that can take on entire armies alone. Maybe they fought great beasts back in the day, or alien invasions. But now they fight for the Imperium. Sometimes the Mechanicus specifically, but some of them have oaths directly to the Emperor instead. They're big on oaths and vows and nobility. Some of them wield massive knights that are almost Titan-sized. Some, the lesser nobles or bastards, wield armigers, these littler knights that can still rip apart a tank, but are slaved to the bigger knights. They're betters, basically. Or the newer knight, which is there for those nobles who want a bit less armor and want to run in and fucking punt something. Point is, they're all haughty nobles who are connected to a massive war machine. But, that war machine has a backup of every prior pilot. Imagine you go to work, sit down at your desk, and your grandmother's telling you you're a shit pilot. Your great-great-grandfather said back in my day this was different. Imagine all that kind of stuff constantly, and you've got to negotiate with those ghosts to make sure that your night works properly. But when you're all into sync, oh, it's unstoppable. Now, the Grey Knights, admittedly, are still Space Marines. They are. But they're not quite the same. They were made directly by the Emperor himself to fight demons. They are often way on demand than they need to be, and they are sent across the galaxy to purge the demonic. They are trained, they're all psychics, and they are given the best armor they can. The Space Marines typically wear either power armor, or typically power armor. Nowadays, they're like variants of it, but for the Grey Knights, their typical armor is Terminator armor, this thicker kind of power armor that was likely produced from a mining suit that was then up-armored and up-gunned to be super heavy armor for the Space Marines. Normally, that shit's reserved for the top, like, brass veterans. For Grey Knights, that's standard issue. They need it. They fucking need it. The demons they fight are colossal and very dangerous, so they need every advantage. And if that Terminator armor lets you take one hit from an axe the size of a bus, yeah, that'll do. The Inquisition, last bit the Imperial mentioned today. They are the secret police. They can do whatever they want, pretty much. They're only kept in check by each other. They work with the Grey Knights sometimes when dealing with demons, the Sisters when dealing with heretics, and a small group of the Space Marines called the Death Watch, who are plucked from every chapter and are there to help them deal with particularly nasty aliens. But they also deal with censoring information, they deal with uncovering information, they'll investigate and destroy heretics, ideally before they become a problem. They can take over entire armies if needed, and in the most extreme cases, they are authorized to end an entire planet with all the population on it. Sometimes it's the only way, but it's a grim burden, and some are maybe too liberal with that burden. Now, chaos. I mentioned it earlier, so I won't repeat myself too much. But a thing to note with chaos, many of them joined chaos to be free from the Imperium, and to this day, many join chaos to be free of the Imperium. You're not really free. You're just under new management now. The Chaos Gods are brutal. They demand your worship, but if you worship them, they will answer. To quote Bricky a bit here, in the Warhammer 41st setting, on a 40,000 setting, Satan doesn't just exist, but you can call him up, and he'll pop over in his fucking Cadillac and sit on your couch. The gods exist, and you can call them, and they will aid you. Some Chaos Space Marines will literally allow demons to enter their body and inhabit them, granting them great power at the cost of their minds and bodies. Some of them will accept great and terrible gifts. You might ask, why would you go for all this suffering? The mass sacrifice, the bloody rituals, the backstabbing. Because those who follow the dark path of chaos will find themselves ascending to demonhood themselves. To become a demon prince is to shed your mortality and become a god. A master of mortals and demons alike. Immortal and as indestructible as the demons. Because yeah, demons can't die. Unless they're trapped or killed by very specific things, they will never die. You will just get sent back to the warp and you'll come back. And if you've done very well, you'll be given your own demon world. Your own domain. Where you're an eternal master. Many join Chaos for this. Others end up falling into its grasp for other reasons. The Black Legion turned to Chaos because fuck the Imperium. The Red Corsairs use Chaos, but they're more pirates. They'll use Chaos, they won't shy away from it, but they aren't slaves to it as much. Groups like the Death Guard, World Eaters, Emperor's Children, and Thousand Sons, they're slaves to Chaos now. They're slaves to their patron god, and they always will be. And as the demons themselves, they come in lesser and greaters, with a few beasts and nasties in between. Lessers like human-sized, examples being the bloodletters or demonettes. They come in droves, and they don't care if you shoot them. They'll come back. The greater demons, though, are towering monsters that can take on armies. These are the things that the Imperium really fears. Their mere presence causes planet-wide devastation. And to be very blunt, the planet might get destroyed, even if you win. Because those things manifesting on your planet's a bad time. The permanent corruption may never leave. Now, Chaos Knights. Many were loyal, some were never loyal, but what they are twisted war machines filled with demons, corrupted ghosts, who will imagine, not just if your ancestors were angry at you, but maybe some of them were loyalists before, and are watching you murder billions with the war machine they loved, that used to be a beloved hero. Their memory, nothing now. And maybe you fused with that machine, the metal biting into your flesh, combining you into it, until the day you are ripped out as a husker corpse, to be replaced by another. Maybe you don't have spirits in that engine at all, but demons, each biting at your mind as you go insane. And your insanity reflects on this war machine. They're often using unorthodox weapons and tactics, and they are there for themselves. Their honor is no more, or a bastardized version of what it used to be. They are there for themselves, and they will slaughter as many as it takes. They are walking dread incarnate, and being near one breaks even the strongest of minds. They are about as terrifying as a greater demon in their own rights, and some might as well be a greater demon. Some of them literally manifest from blood. Like, imagine a pool of blood and a humongous machine drags itself out to slaughter. These things are terrifying, and yes, there are Chaos Titans too. As horrifying as that probably sounds. Forces of Chaos have fleets, armadas, ancient weapons, and can annihilate entire worlds. They are a cancer, and they want to destroy the Imperium through sorcery, through confusion, assassination, subversion, and leave nothing but a mangled edifice of everything the Emperor wanted. Mention the Eldar. I've already quite covered these guys, but I didn't mention the Corsairs. I'll quickly go over them. Obviously, the Harlequins, they serve... I think it's pronounced Shigorak, or Shigorak. There are many... The pronunciation has not really been clarified with him, but he's a laughing god. He essentially escaped into the webway, their way of going through light, fast, and light travel to hide from Slaanesh, and basically just trolls the fuck out of Slaanesh at every angle. His servants are the Harlequins, and they are there to both preserve Eldar culture and enact the will of the Laughing God, whatever that may be. As I mentioned before, the Dark Eldar, hedonists, monsters, the lot of them. They are one of the most evil factions in setting, and that says something. I probably haven't really stated how evil some factions truly are, but these guys are fucked. They will torture you, mutilate everything, for their own pleasure, but also to fend off Slaanesh. It comes in varying degrees, but they are manipulative, deceitful, and will literally harvest world every so often, for the fun of it. The thrill of the hunt is something they really enjoy, and their gladiatorial arenas are filled with captured aliens and all sorts from every planet. They will create flesh horrors from their own people, from your people, from you. Doesn't matter. They'll make abominations of flesh and metal and pain. You'll hear the word pain a lot with them because they love it. Many of them dress like very edgy, dark versions of Eldar, like bladed armor with segments, or in many cases scantily clad, bearing their bodies to either lighten their armor or just to distract you, because as far as that Eldar witch is concerned, if you're staring at her titties, you're not staring at the blade she's got underneath your neck. Or the whip sword that's already bisected you at this point. Or the venom weapon that's corroding your insides. Here's the worst part. Many of their weapons are there to hurt you and not kill you, because they want you alive. Chaos will do horrible things to you, but the Eldar will also. The Eldar won't do it for gods. The Dark Eldar will do it for themselves. The Eldar do have another god that is around, though. Cain, the god of war and murder. Worshipped by the Dark Eldar and the Craftworlders. Sometimes the Craftworlders will even pull him out. And despite many of the stories where he's used as just a way to show how powerful someone is, he is a pretty powerful being. A fragment of what he used to be, but terrible when brought into the battlefield. Craftworlders, they're very much about their ways. If you're... there's also civilian ways as well. Maybe you're a bone singer, essentially. You use your psychic talents to grow the wraith bone that's used in their structures and vehicles and everything. It's like a psychic reactive material. They're there to grow it. But maybe you're a Farseer, you're a real insanely powerful psychic who can see the future and help guide your species. They'll fight as well, but ideally they want to be using their powers for foresight. Maybe you're a dire avenger, frontline fighter, a protector of your people. Maybe you're a striking scorpion, an assassin. Think like Predator, as far as like how they work. They also use some of the oldest examples of chainswords in history, by the way. Yeah, you wouldn't think the Eldar were the one invented the chainsword. You'd think that'd be humanity, but no. The elves made it first. And they're pretty good. Or maybe you're something like the Bright Lancers. I think they're called Bright Lancers. I might have got the name slightly wrong, but you're like a noble knight upon your hoverbike, riding at max speed with a lance that burns through just about anything. A noble warrior, even if, in many ways, you're also going straight into the enemy's jaws. The Eldar utilize a lot of grav technology across the board, by the way. They are measurably powerful psychers, except for the Dark Eldar. They have no psychers because they blame them for the fall of their empire. Despite that's not the reason why they fell, but it didn't help. Now, Corsairs. Piracy exists in the Imperium. And yes, the Orcs decided to put a pirate hat on their head and start having a more Cockney accent than they already fucking had. The Eldar Corsairs come from all walks of life, bar the Harlequins. Once you're a Harlequin, you're always one, but otherwise, the Corsairs pull from everybody. They use all kinds of weapons, and they're there for hit and run, smash and grab, steal shit. They'll maybe, in some cases, maybe they'll even take slaves to then sell to Dark Eldar. They'll reclaim Eldar relics. They'll sabotage human technology. And most of the time, though, they'll do it to better themselves, and sometimes better a craft world, or to help the Eldar in general. They're a weird one. They're kind of privateers in many ways. Sometimes they'll raid other Eldar, but very rarely. It depends a lot on the prince or princess who ruled them. And they tend to have great fleets. They've had a lot of recent model releases, but in essence, they're very, very robust and rugged for Eldar standards. Some of them are very hit and run in, dice you up and run away. Others will almost glide around the battlefield, taking pot shots at you and trying to distract you whilst the other force comes in from the back. They're very fast. A big thing with the Eldar is speed. Their stuff can hit pretty hard, but they fold pretty easily if they get pinned down, so most of the time they won't stand their ground unless they have to. The true Eldar, at least. Things like the Dark Eldar Racks, who are splayed and mutilated and augmented, they can take a beating. They might like it when they take a beating, but most Eldar, though, will prefer to dodge, and some can even dodge fucking las gunshots that quick. But they're a dying race, and there's not many of them left. Slaanesh has made sure of that. I mentioned them before. Tyranids. They came from outside the galaxy. Many people believe they've either sensed humanity and the Emperor, or maybe it was from a detonation of a psychically powerful device during the heresy. Whatever it was, they're here now, and they're hungry. There's no reasoning with them. There's no way of diplomacy. They are coming from outside the galaxy in droves, and they want to consume everything, down to the littlest nanometer. If it exists, if it can be processed into nutrients, they will eat it. The seas, the atmosphere, everything. The only reason the stars still exist in the sky is because they can't eat them. Yet. And they will even send subversion elements via the gene stealer cults. Humanity mostly, as it doesn't really work as well against other races. There was one time it was successful, the Eldar. The Orcs always sniff it out, and the Tau nearly caused their own gene stealer problem. But humanity's a very easy target. Our great hive cities that are so big that it's impossible to track the population could be easily filled. And once these gene stealers get in, they'll plant their genetic disease into people and start breeding up a cult. These hybrids then lead an uprising, and their psychic sort of emanation will call in the Hive Fleet, who don't use FTL, but instead slowly drift in the void of space. And then will slowly, when they get close enough, use their psychic powers, because they have extremely powerful psychic abilities, by the hive mind, to manipulate a star's gravity, to fling them into your system. It causes catastrophic problems as is, but their presence also cuts off communication and warp travel. They're a nightmare to fight, and if you've seen them in Space Marine 2 or Dawn of War 2, you understand the trillions that get sent on the planet. And we don't know how many there are. We don't know how many galaxies they might have eaten on the way here. And they're still very hungry. So, with that all being said, do we have any questions? Any at all? Don't worry if you can't think of any right now. Let me know. What are you thinking? If we have any at all. Don't worry if you don't. It's perfectly fine. I've said a lot. And for you guys on YouTube, I'm probably going to see if I can snip out most of the stream of me just talking. Put it as its own video on the live channel if I can. And that'll give you guys a chance as well in case you haven't got time. But any questions at all about anything we talked about? If there are none, don't worry about it. That's fine. If you think of any later, that's fine too. I'm happy to answer them whenever. 40k is one of those things I have a massive special interest with, and I could talk all day, to the point where it hurts my fucking throat to do so. I realise I've been talking now for nearly 2 hours. Holy shit, my throat. Oh, Trays in the Infinite. I was keeping it surface level, but Trazen's one of the Necron characters you'll hear a lot. He likes to collect people. If you're thinking like the Collector from Marvel, or just a Warhammer player collecting minis, that's how he sees everything, as a collection. He'll go out of his way to hunt down a guards regiment, just to add to his collection. He has Custodes frozen in there. He has a clone of a Primarch in his vault. He has everything he can want. And he still wants more. He's even helped humanity once or twice. Would you believe? But he also likes to body swap whenever someone destroys his body. And he's a massive shit stirrer. Biggest kleptomaniac in the galaxy by a country mile, by the way. He pretty much is, yeah. He just rage baits another Necron constantly called Orican. That guy's like a master of like time travel and stuff. Right. I think, though, that's probably a good place to end it off, unless you have any other questions. Let me just see if I can end the presentation. There we go. I cinemaed myself. Fuck. Okay, so that was our little presentation on what is Warhammer 40,000. So hopefully next time I play, well, tomorrow, obviously we're doing more Dark Heresy, which is a tabletop game set like Dungeons and Dragons, set in the Warhammer 40k universe. So hopefully this stream and video, hopefully if I remember to do it properly, is hopefully a helpful little guide for anyone new thinking, what is this universe? What's going on? What the hell is this? A little mention on the Inquisition. The Autochronus are a subgroup who specifically deal with time-related problems. Time travel, which can happen, because when you go through the warp, time doesn't always move the same. You might end up in the past or the future, and that could fuck with things. They deal with anyone trying to manipulate time, anyone trying to essentially cause problems via it. That's one of their biggest things. But they also try and figure out things like what time in the galaxy it currently is, and identify any problems in the timeline, if they can. They're a very niche group, which is why I picked them to be a very niche storyline. So hopefully that gives you that explanation for them too. Of course, if there's any desire for me to do another one of these, please let me know. I will create another one for you. If not, then I hope you enjoyed anyway. But once again, I'd like to thank you all for joining me for today's presentation. I know it's been a bit of a shorter one. Tomorrow will be a bit longer, because it's Dark Heresy. Hopefully less removal of limbs. Fingers crossed. Before I end it, once again, a massive thank you to the very lovely Veta Valentine. Absolute pleasure having you in your community. Hope you have a good rest. I know you're not here currently, but I will thank you again over Twitter. Thank you ever so much for the raid, and to any raiders who stuck around or just stayed around for a little bit, thank you ever so much for joining us tonight as well. And thank you to all of my regulars too who are here. I hope this was useful, informative for you, and I hope you had a good time listening to me nerd the fuck out for 2 hours. This is what it's like talking to me, by the way. I hope you realise this. And just before I end things off, if you're on the Discord, you might be aware that I've produced the first video, or audio, for my own lore series on my own setting. I won't go into it too much here because my throat is going to kill me. But if you like the idea of a theocratic cyberpunk setting, maybe check it out. Links are over in the Discord. When I can start putting external links on that channel, I will do. But point is, it's something a bit different. Less VTubery, more lore stuff, and it features a little bit of art from yours truly. I am also using it as a excuse to try and practice my art. Drawing little bits from the setting, or just, honestly, trying to just do little illustrations, give you some visual. But anyway, that's all from me tonight. Thank you ever so much for joining me. I hope you had a wonderful time. You've been a pleasure, as always. And I will see you all tomorrow for more Dark Heresy. Until then, it's tough for now. Also, yes, we're going to raid somebody.
Well, okay, there